Hi, my name is Donna Swanson. I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of Focus Center for Autism and the Fresh Start School. I founded it with my husband 21 years ago. We just fell in love with the autism spectrum and decided to go ahead and do it. We started with an extended day program and then after school program, and now we have the Fresh Start School, which is in its 5th year of existence as a approved special ed program. And then we also have 2 residential programs, one in Barkhamsted for teenagers 14 to 21 with autism and trauma. And then we have a young adult/adult programs in Torrington, supportive housing. And like I said, we've been doing it for 21 years and just really trying to provide as many services as we can. One of the things that we are noticing is that there's just not enough for the young adults and adults. So that is something that that is a priority, transition services. What else would you add, Dan?
Oh yeah, I think right now you're saying like young adults and adults, because I feel like a lot of times in younger kids, they might be getting the services, they're noticed the behaviors that need to be worked on, but as they get older, it's kind of like, figure out yourself, you know, but it's like, no, people still need services, still need help, still need a community to grow. Right.
Well, and we do specialize in social skills here at Focus, and as I forgot to introduce Dan Sitcovsky. He's our Director of Autism Services, and we have Alex Feliciano here. He's going to tell his story, and he's been with Focus for a while, and he's now a graduate, and
how many years?
I didn't even know.
Graduated? You know, how many years have you been connected to us?
Yeah.
It's been so long.
Almost a decade?
Almost a decade.
Almost a decade, and the growth is amazing. We're going to tell you to be friends with us, ask you to be friends with us on our Facebook page, Focus Center for Autism, or the Fresh Start School. And this is a regular series that we're doing, Life on the Spectrum, and I hope you guys stay tuned and look at, we have a lot of different stories that we're going to be telling. Today we're going to be talking to Alex.
Hello.
And Alex, how old are you?
I'm 21.
21. So if we had you for 10 years, that means you came to us when you were like 11-ish, 12-ish?
Well, decade is a rough estimate, I'd say.
A rough estimate, okay.
Yeah, I feel like you were like 14, 15.
Yeah, like 14, 15-ish. It was like in between like the freshman year of high school, I think.
Okay, it just feels like a decade.
Yeah.
But when you first came to us, you know, like what were your issues before you came to us? You were in high school, you were having, what were some of the things that were going on with you?
I guess like mixed in with like typical teen angst, probably a lot of social anxiety issues and depression and things of that sort.
Yeah.
Were you bullied?
Yes, I was bullied. It was very hard to make friends. Ever since I was a kid, it's been very difficult because I don't know social cues very well. Yeah. So over the years, I like kind of picked it up from other people and like movies I'd watched, and that like come to my brain and be like, oh, you're supposed to act like this.
So why were you bullied, do you think? What about you got bullied?
I guess because I was like very quiet and I don't know, something vulnerable about me. Like I seem like a very vulnerable person to like pick on. It's like I'm a prime target for that, I suppose, because of that.
Yeah. So that must have made you feel horrible, right?
Yeah.
And then why did they think about sending you to Focus? Did you stop going to school? Were you? I don't remember.
It was quite a while ago. I just didn't want to go to school anymore, like because of how like bad it was. Well, for me personally.
And I often bring you up, not to put you on the spot, but when I think of how people are diagnosed, I remember when you first started with us, you were diagnosed as oppositional defiant disorder from the school district. And I mean, if you look at Alex and talk to Alex, he's not oppositional, but you were showing those behaviors, right? Because you were shut down because it was bullied too much, everything was too much. So you wouldn't, is that correct? You wouldn't do as much, so people might think you're like, oh, you're being stubborn, but it was more was too much.
And the social anxiety, the anxiety, often people with anxiety get called oppositional defiant because their anxiety, they're in that state of fight or flight, and they're not moving until they feel comfortable. So it looks like you're refusing to do something when they're asking you to do something that's out of your comfort zone. So that's why you're not doing it. So Dan, you've been with Alex from the beginning. I remember you when you first came in, sunglasses, not talking, very, very quiet. And I would say that was close to a year that you wouldn't eat with anybody, the sunglasses, very quiet, always very nice and very polite. But did it take that long for you to feel comfortable, or did you feel comfortable with us? You just didn't know what to do? What do you think?
Well, I feel like I really have to get used to an environment before I start socializing with people. It's like once I build a relationship with people, it's more easy to talk to them because I guess I'm not that vulnerable to talk about my emotions that much if I trust that person.
And that took you a while too, because even I think after a year, when you felt comfortable and were joking around with your friends and happy to be here, it was still hard because I was your clinician, and I remember it being hard for you to talk about any of these things. And I remember Miss Carol, or it was either Miss Carol or Miss Megan, one of the first times you opened up to us was you went for a ride with them to help with a chore or something like that. And you might not remember this, but we remember this because it was sitting side by side with someone instead of the confrontational across from them. It was too much that you talked about a few things. And I think this happened a few times, so that was easier for you to open up, and it can look different for everybody. Like you said, it's the trust and the comfortable environment that really makes a difference.
One of the things, so even though he didn't talk or anything, you always came. Your attendance was good. So that part showed me that at least you felt comfortable. And did we nag you, or did we let you just kind of find your way?
You mostly let me find my way. I mean, there was some nagging, but
That's cool. Nudging, yeah.
But because we saw that you could do more, but when we found that you weren't ready to do more, right, we kind of...
You're not going to push someone to something they're not going to do. You often talk about that, Donna. So that's where a lot of power struggles come, and it becomes a non-trusting relationship with at the school or in any place, or with a clinician. If you're trying to get someone to do something they're not going to do, and it becomes adversarial, or it's more based on trust, right? And
So we've had sort of a metamorphosis here with you. Do you know what I mean by metamorphosis?
Yeah.
Tell me what I mean.
Like butterflies.
Yes, you've gone from a caterpillar to a butterfly.
Chrysalis.
Yes, a chrysalis. Of course you know that word, right?
Yeah. I hope I'm using that correctly.
Yeah,
Yes, you are. You are. So Dan, you were part of his metamorphosis, his change. What?
Well, it took a while for you. I think, and that's the thing, even when you started to feel comfortable, it wasn't like an overnight, now I feel comfortable and I trust people, now I can, even after you left us and you graduated, you really worked hard getting your GED.
It was tough.
And it was tough, but you still kept connected with us, even though you weren't part of our program.
What was tough about the GED?
Well, I guess it was going back to the high school that traumatized me from the start. Yeah. And it was going back, it was all reliving these memories of oh, you're going to be subjugated to bullying again or something like that. But I mean, even though I felt very vulnerable, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it's a PTSD and it's anxiety. We like to avoid things, right? So
were people nice to you?
Yeah, for the most part, people were nice to me.
Do you think it was helpful for you to go through that too? That it was scary and it brought up all those feelings, but
definitely.
Actually have to go through it kind of helped you through and feel a little bit more confident in yourself?
Yeah, I guess so. I felt like I was confronting the world. It's you don't own me anymore.
Well, they talk about that often with anxiety is exposure therapy is, that's one of the tried and true ways to help with anxiety is you have to kind of like go through it a little bit and with help. So you still stayed connected to us. You still talked with us about it. We helped you with it, but you needed to do it yourself too, and you
But
did.
that's his attitude, is when he went back to the high school, he was like, you don't own me anymore, right?
Well, after I was like, you don't own me anymore. I got my GED.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So you have your GED. You wanted to talk about sort of his transformation and how his interests and his
Because it was always there. Your interests are always there, but I feel like you felt like different, right? So you didn't really talk to people about them as much.
No.
Because you have unique interests, so you can talk about what are stuff you're interested in.
I mean, it's always changed. I mean,
Yeah.
back when I was in high school, it used to be writing, and I would always give my stories to like my science teacher, and he'd be like, "Hey, this is very scientifically inaccurate." And I'm like, "Okay." I guess it wasn't the best. It was like a lot of like fantasy stuff or whatever. I'm not really much into writing anymore. I got really into records at one point. Like collecting like vinyl records and things like that. I don't know, physical media. I mean, I guess I'm still into physical media, just in a different sort of way. I like collecting horror movies and like horror memorabilia and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like ever since I was a kid, I like stumbled upon these VHS tapes and I was like, I wonder what this is. I was traumatized,
Yeah.
but I also really enjoyed it. I liked being scared. I liked having, I don't know, like feeling like I was at the edge of my seat watching this awesome movie where people get ripped into shreds. Yeah, I don't know.
Is that almost like a coping mechanism for you? Because
I guess it kind of is.
Because I know a lot of people who, like, I'm not into horror.
Me
I
neither.
don't like it. But I know, like, another clinician, Miss Megan, she loves horror movies. And other people who like horror movies, but in other places might be anxious about other stuff. I'm like, how can you do it if you have anxiety and then you're watching these horror movies? But it's just, we talked about in another episode, Jesse loves heavy metal, and
Right.
people don't understand that. How can that be a coping mechanism? So some people might think, how could horror movies be a coping mechanism?
Yeah, exactly.
How is it a coping mechanism?
Well, I guess it was kind of like a weird sort of escapism.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I get to like be very invested in this like story where like I guess it's kind of real. I guess it depends on what I'm watching. I don't know. It just feels nice to like be in somewhere that isn't like real life. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I find people scary, but I find like movies very relaxing and cozy.
Because it's more cut and dry in the movies, right? And people are so complex, and you have to, if you have social awkwardness and don't want to talk to people, the idea of having to have a conversation with 3 different people and figure out what and not feel confident in yourself could be,
Yeah, the thing is that when I was growing up, I always thought, man, people have it a lot easier in movies because things that there's a script. There's a script that you have to read, and then like people have to interact with each other,
So how did you develop your own script to get through life?
Well,
You led me into that.
I guess it wasn't easy. I mean, I don't. Could you? refer
Well,
that
like,
to-
what's the script that you give to yourself every day when you're facing something that's not something that you want to do or have to do or that kind of thing? How do you motivate yourself to keep on keeping on?
Well, I guess it's still really difficult for me, but it's a lot less so. I mean, especially since the pandemic like really affected a lot of people. Like me personally, I was so scared to go outside. I was so scared to do like literally anything, like go to the grocery store. But like once I went back out there with like my face mask and all that, of course, it wasn't like I felt a little safer. Yeah.
I was going to add, I remember because we were in contact with you, even though you weren't, coming to our program. Even though you're a graduate mentor now, you come in and the kids loved seeing you. But I remember you mentioning to us how you were so excited about doing things like possibly getting your license, and you were scared about it, but growing. But then the pandemic happened, and it was like shut, and I can't do anything. And I'm afraid to go anywhere. And that was really difficult for you because you almost felt like, oh, right when I was about to do these things and become a butterfly, I'm stuck in the chrysalis.
Yeah.
So
Very poetic, Dan.
Thank you. Well, you gave me the words before. I'm just using your words.
Okay.
how long were you stuck, do you think?
During the pandemic? Or
Yeah.
It took a while. I think not until like maybe like in the middle, like when cases started going down, I was like, okay, I'm more comfortable to go out into places and like, I guess, kind of socialize with people. You know, like when you're at the grocery store, you have to interact with the cashier and stuff. And I don't know, sometimes I'd make small talk with people. It's like, oh yeah, I like that product. You should totally get that, or something like that. I don't know. I just try to, get out there and try to socialize as much as I can.
And I would say I noticed that around that time too, when like if we would message with you, sometimes it would take you a day or two to respond.
Yeah.
Because it's overwhelming to reach out, even to people you feel, to talk to people. But then I've noticed the past, like this year, 2021, if we're messaging you, you get right back to us because you feel a little bit, that's the sense I've gotten. You feel a little bit more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You feel safer?
Yeah, definitely. Since, the pandemic's died down, it's like, and my social anxiety is starting to get like around the pre-pandemic sort of, I feel like a lot more comfortable to reply back, I'm sorry.
No. We totally understood. That's
We
the thing.
understood.
Oh, okay.
So the pandemic, you became more of a recluse, right?
Yeah.
And what did you do? And were you watching TV? Were you depressed? How did you handle this isolation? I found the isolation very hard too.
Yeah, it affects everyone very differently. I guess I experienced like all that. I experienced depression. I experienced like social anxiety. Like whenever I got confronted with a phone call, I'm like, oh no, someone's calling me. And I don't want to respond to it, or like a text message or something. It's like the most terrifying like thought. I mean, at least then.
Why do you think the pandemic influenced that?
Because you're told to be like inside. You're supposed to like socially distance. And I was already doing that before.
Do you think it was partially that like your anxiety is already up here? Mm-hmm. So if another thing on top of it, whereas before you're a little bit lower, so you might respond easier, but you're already filled with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what you were the most afraid of?
During the pandemic?
Yeah.
Oh, the virus, definitely. Yeah, because like when you read all that stuff, it's like, oh, people are getting hospitalized and like people like have like long COVID now, which is a terrifying thought to me. It's like I wouldn't want any of my family members catching that. So I would always tell my family members, be careful when you're going out.
Yeah.
Especially because I was also like doing, I was at a food bank volunteering sometimes, and it got really serious because like one of us got a positive, and so I was terrified.
Yep.
But I was fine, thankfully.
So you had been in contact. Been in contact with somebody that had. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's been pretty scary times. It's feeling more hopeful now, though. I think. Do you?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of hope going around.
So, even you had this delay, do you feel like it was like a missed opportunity, or I feel like a little bit more confident now that even though that happened for a year, that you like maybe you'll go work on getting your license, or did this derail you? Do you think?
I feel like in some ways it did derail me, but I'm willing to try again, like get back up on my feet again, so to speak, and like, get back out there. And
You're here.
Yeah, exactly.
And you reached out about coming on here, so you put yourself in this position.
Yeah, I texted Dan and say, hey, when am I going to be on the late night autism show?
Yeah.
And here you are.
Yeah.
And like, what words of wisdom do you might have for anybody that's facing the social anxiety, the autism? Like how does autism affect you?
I mean, there's definitely ups and downs to it. Not having like, especially into adulthood, like the resources are like, there's not many, so it's very difficult to like get a job or get some type of help when it comes to like financially supporting yourself, especially when you deal with the world in a different way, when you perceive it very differently than most people. It's really hard to attain, to like latch onto something.
If you could get a job, what would you like it to be?
Oh, jeez, that's a loaded question.
I have a few.
Probably something to do with the film industry, like something behind the scenes. It's like working on, I don't know, like film reels and I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, because isn't that something that's been helping you this past year? I know you have a video store, right? You can give them a plug if you want. But it's like, don't you go there? They have a lot of old movies, so it's been kind of your social outlet.
Yeah, definitely. I always like socializing with the employees there because they're really super nice and they're very supportive and like always giving me recommendations for films I haven't seen before.
Horror films that you
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
seen?
Well, not just horror, like exploitation and things like that, you know.
So, and you also, when you were at Focus, you had a job, right? The local coffee shop.
Yeah.
And how was that experience for you?
Oh, it was a nice experience. I think I thought it gave me like a little preview of like what having a job would be like. I mean, it's not easy, but it certainly is an experience that you need to latch onto to succeed in this world.
And they loved you there, you know,
Yeah.
when you were there. So like it was a very supportive environment for you. I remember you telling me one time you went to your first party. It was like weird because like at school you'd be like, oh, you shouldn't go to parties, right?
Yeah.
But like we were excited for you because it was a big milestone to like you socializing with people in that setting. You said it was awkward, right? It was they didn't know what to do, but it was kind of like that exposure therapy for social situations.
Which is something you seem to be more willing to do, is to put yourself out there in awkward situations and try. I know the pandemic probably gave you more of an excuse to pull back, but you are trying new things.
Yeah, definitely.
Dan, what else would you?
Yeah, I'd say I think a big thing for you, and tell me if I'm wrong, is the community. Is you finding people to connect with. I think, did you have many people you felt connected to at the school you were at or any student? No. So I think that was helped you get out of your shell and kind of explore what you're interested in, is feeling connected to people. I think that's what we try to focus on too at Focus, is creating that community.
Yeah, now I feel like more of a connection with like more autistic people. It's like a nice group. It makes me feel safe. And
Yeah, because you're going through similar challenges, right? So
yeah.
you feel like it's not you alone dealing with it yourself.
And I have to say that the kids with autism are very nice to other people with autism. They're very understanding and accepting and of your differences, of all of our differences.
Yeah.
And our definition at Focus of autism is creatively wired and socially challenged, because it really, and that's what makes it so hard for people, is that autism doesn't look the same in anybody. So, I mean, some people might look at you and say, I don't see the autism.
Do you think that's been part difficult for you? Because
I feel
sometimes
like that's like one of the most offensive things people say to me.
Yeah.
Is what, that you don't look like you have autism?
Yeah, it's like very demeaning. It's like, oh, people like expect like I don't want to make like stereotypes or anything, but like people expect like autistic people, they say things like, oh, you're not stupid, or like, oh, you're not like drooling or something like that. You know, people have different needs, and people like are very like different. It's a spectrum for a reason.
And that's why we do these shows, and you've been on a few panels too. That's one of our main goals too, is to create the understanding that everyone's going through different struggles on the spectrum, and it really looks different for every person.
It looks different for everybody. You have a lot of the same things in common, but it's also very, very different.
And that's why we try to focus on meeting people where they're at.
And Alex, and I know I speak for you too, Dan, we are so proud of you, and so proud that you could come out here today and help us out and share your story and all that makes you the most wonderful person that you are, with that beautiful smile. Yeah. And you're just fantastic. And again, people, please join us for on this Life on the Spectrum. We're going to have more episodes, and I thank you so much for coming here today and joining us, Dan, Alex, and myself, Donna, as we tell our stories. And awesome. Thank you.
See you.